What's up, YouTube? I'm never gonna do an intro like that. Um, I've got a lot of content building up. That I really want to launch. It'll be coming up next week, but I want to do another video. Just because a lot of people are asking me because the LCQs are coming up for NA Continentals, and then we'll have Store Champs next week. And there's just some gameplay from a Store Champs game I had last set in the background. So just that's just something to put on in the background, but it's nothing important. Um, but yeah, a lot of people ask me about the LCQs and the store championships and like just any tips or tricks and stuff like that. Maybe beyond just like picking the deck, how to perform at a competitive level. I'm not out here saying I'm like the most valid person to be giving these tips and the most important person to be doing it. But I did manage to win my LCQ racket and store champs. I've always done fairly decent at and managed to win some mats and things like that in the past. So I do feel like I must have something to say on the matter. And maybe I should just get some more self confidence. But yeah, I mean, outside of just playing your best, bringing the deck that you want, there's always the saying of you can go in on all of these tips and tricks and like thought process that you have in competitive TCGs. But at the end of the day, it's just play the game and play the game as well as you can. You don't have to go too in depth, on things. That always the core is just play and do your best. But besides that, like little tips that have helped me along the way. So an LCQ and a store champs, like they're kind of in the same realm of what you're trying to do there. It's a 5 rounds of Swiss into top cut, which LCQ will get you into the EU Continentals, and store champs will get you into, the top cut, the store champs who win the mat and all that stuff. So they're very much in the same bracket in that sense. And of course, when you go to an event, these tips might not work for everyone because I'm a Sapphire Steel player, and no matter what event I go to, I tend to just always bring Sapphire Steel. That might change in a few sets time, but as of right now, no matter what the event is, I tend to just bring Sapphire Steel with me. So when I'm going to an event, I do have to kind of prepare. But I don't really have that luxury of. I think there's going to be a lot of Ruby Sapphire there, so I want to bring an aggro deck or I want to bring Ruby Amethyst. I don't really do those sorts of decisions, but those decisions are always very good. If you have a lot of decks to your disposal and you think you're good on all of them, you can be like, right now, I'm seeing a lot of online environments where Ruby Sapphire is picking up. I've seen mumblings in like 20 Law Discord and on Lorcanito and different places that Ruby Sapphire is going to be heavily played at the store champs that I'm going to or um, at the LCQ. So you can take a deck that you feel would counter and do well against it. And that's always a very good decision to make. Try and pick it as early as you can so you can get as much practice in, even if you think you're quite good on the deck. Definitely do that. But if you're just a Sapphire Steel player like I am, I tend to start thinking for tech options and things like that. So in past sets, we've had, if it's a Ruby Sapphire meta, like Mukduk Mana was quite useful for a while in that deck. And right now, if you've seen my no wheel list, I've seen there's a lot of Cheater in there because I'm just expecting to see a lot of Ruby Sapphire there. And then the idea of how I built that list was is what I would bring because I'd expect to see a lot of Ruby Sapphire, and I think Green Steel is very popular there. And Ruby Amethyst has proven to never been a bad deck choice, so I think there's going to be a lot of that there as well. So that Cheater list was kind of where I was coming from with that. And then versus like Green Steel, just a no wheel deck in itself, performs quite well into that matchup. So that's sort of how I morph into that because I'm thinking about what I'm expecting to see. I'm trying to build a list around what I'm expecting to see. That's just personally because I'm a Sapphire Steel player and I just stick with Sapphire Steel. But of course, you can choose other deck lists if you think that's a better thing. If you think the most popular deck is going to be Amber Steel or something like that, you could bring your Ruby Sapphire. So always think about that. Try and get into all the test environments for that. 20 Law is a very good place for that. A lot of top end players are talking about it. Um, and then you've got Lorcanito as well, which let's be honest, at this point, Lorcanito is kind of like Pixelborn. And what decks you're seeing on there is most likely what people are going to be bringing to LCQs. And I'm mainly talking about the higher ELO end. So anything above 1400, I'd say those are people who are playing for the LCQs and most likely practicing for an LCQ. So you can spectate their games if you're not reaching that high elo yet, or maybe you've just started an account. And you can have a look at those games and see what lists are running, and you can start checking your list and start picking what list you want to bring to the event. And as well, that does affect the store champs because what does well at big events like LCQs and EU and NA Continentals and the EU Continentals will affect what we see at the store champs. So yeah, definitely keeping an eye on those like environments like not Pixelball anymore, like Lorcanito and what's it called, the 20 Law Discord is very good for that. All of the Discords that you find are active with lots of Lorcana talk are just good places to go to. 20 Law is like the biggest one, has like 6,000 people. So if you're not in there, definitely get in there. And there's loads of talks as well that will probably help you out with the game. But besides picking the deck choice, of course, I'll give you all the blatant obvious ones of get enough sleep, get to the event early enough that you can sleep properly. I didn't do that for my LCQ, which was kind of bad. You can take a coach in the UK to Paris, which took about 10 hours, and I thought I would sleep on the coach, but I didn't really. But yeah, get enough sleep, get there early enough. And when you're practicing for the LCQ or a store champs or just any event that has Swiss and you think it's going to be really important to you, so I'm actually just saying beyond LCQ and store champs at this point, anything that's important for you to just do well at. I tend to stop practicing with the deck the week of the event. So if the event is on the Friday, I will stop practicing on the Monday. And the reason is you should have at that point had enough practice with the deck. You should have played it enough. And at that point, all you're really doing is going to play over, and you'll get your nice wins in there as well, and feel great, and feel the deck runs fine. And then you're just going to get screwed over by different variants. You're going to have moments where you play against a deck that's not very common. Like if you're playing in an online testing environment, and they you keep going against like Blurple, and like Blurple's not even in the meta right now, and you're like, oh, now got to tech my list for Blurple. You haven't got to tech it for Blurple. It's just you're seeing fundamentally a large amount of Blurple players online right now, and they're warping your opinion on what the meta is and what your mind is seeing and stuff like that. And then you're going to put techs in for the deck that you're probably not even going to see in the actual event. So I tend to stop. From all that rambling, what I'm trying to say is I tend to stop testing the week of the event because I'm just going to end up start attacking and chopping up the list and changing it because I'm getting screwed over by variables and I'm getting too in depth of trying to make the list perfect. And in TCGs, you can't make a list perfect. It's going to have some losses. It's going to have some bad games, and you just can't do anything about that. You just have to go with your best chance, which is always, above 50% chance, 60, 70% chance that you're actually going to win the event, even if you've done all that practice and done your best, because you've got all these variables, you've got, your mulligans, your card draws, your matchups, everything like that is going to affect you. So I tend to stop testing at that point just so I don't get in my head, get in a rut. And then, by the day of the event, you're like tilted like mad because your deck hasn't been performing for the last 5 days or something like that. So I tend to stop testing at that point and just focus in on getting in the right mindset. I'll maybe watch a lot of like Lorcana videos online, chat to a lot of people, but I tend to not play as much. I tend to really just try and focus in on just getting in the right mindset and everything like that, and getting ready for the event and getting chilled out. And getting relaxed because, like I say, at that point, hopefully you've done enough testing, and that week can just be you prepping for it. And I'm not saying we're athletes here, but that's not an uncommon thing for athletes to do as well. A lot of boxers and athletes will, they're not going to be, if they're a marathon racer, they're not going to, run a marathon the night before they run a marathon, and a boxer's not going to get in a fight the night before a fight. So, you can take those sort of ideas in as well, and they always do benefit from you. Getting the right mindset's the best thing to do, getting it sort of fresh and everything, and just being prepared for the event. Um, and at the actual event, so when you play, of course, always think when you're doing each round, the best advice that was ever given to me was don't think I have to win this round and the next few rounds to win the LCQ. So like if you won round one and you're like, right, I need to win 4 more rounds. Don't think like that in your head because that's just putting too much on your plate at once. Just think all I have to do right now is win this round. And just think all I have to do is win this game or out of the best of 3, and then I have to win the next game, and then I have to get my next pairing, and I have to win the next game, and the next, you know what I mean? And just so if you drop a game, say this is how it works in my head. If I'm thinking I need to win 4 more games, and in a best of 3, I've lost one of them games, everything just comes crashing down on me, and I go, oh no, I'm not gonna do it now. But no, if you're just thinking, I won game 1, I lost game 2, right, I need to win the next game, and I'm on the play, and you start thinking the benefits, you start thinking very small, you start thinking what can be achieved, which is the thing that you can do in front of you, winning the event, and doing well in Swiss and stuff like that will get you that win in the event, in my opinion. So don't overwhelm yourself, don't go too in depth on it. And actual tactics and stuff like that, people will do things like, I don't know if I'd call this sharking. I tend to not do it because I just don't feel it. It never feels 100% good in my soul when I do it. But some people will peek other players' life pads because if you looked at someone's life pad and their life and their lore went from like 10 lore to 20 lore, it's most likely they're playing Ruby Sapphire, and then you can do like a mulligan better on that. People have told me to do that. I just tend not to. It feels like it doesn't sit right in me if I was to do that because it just doesn't feel right. But also when you're playing against an opponent and you think they might be doing that, when you get your life pad out, make sure to start on a fresh page rather than just like what your last score was because they might be able to tell if it's small increments of lore, they'll make an assumption on it being a deck that's got small increments of lore, like maybe Ruby Amethyst that's questing small, or if they might think it's Doc Mines if you're getting this big jump of lore at once, or Ruby Sapphire. You could maybe fool them, to be honest with you, if they think they're smart enough. But I tend to just not do that, and yeah, just start with a fresh page. And of course, yeah, play your games out. Like I say, keep it in the moment. And then something that's just sort of very common, and I don't think it's bad to do because everyone's doing it. And at this point, if you're not doing it as well, I think you just put yourself at a disadvantage. Is scouting, and that's in LCQs and in store champs as well. Just if you finish your game, get up and just walk around and look what everyone else is playing, basically, and look at what the meta is like. Try and look at the top tables, try and make a guesstimate of what you might be playing against. Everyone else in the LCQ was doing the same thing, and it's sort of like as the rounds went on, the pods got smaller, and you were actually allocated in your pod, so you could get up, have a look, and see what you're most likely going to play against. Again, that always feels horribly bad. That feels like it's almost cheating, doesn't it? But everyone's doing it. It's not a bad thing. It's the way that the reality of what we're doing here has to happen. If they could get everyone to sit in segregated rooms and then sign a contract to say don't tell anyone what you just played against, they would, but they can't. So this is just part of the event and part of how it is. And to be honest with you, as a Sapphire Steel player and I do YouTube and stuff, it's like 7 out of 10 games everyone mulligans exactly Sapphire Steel against me. So I've always been really negatively impacted by it, but it is what it is. So there's always that as well. Try and get a feel of what's in the room and what you're playing against. And yeah, and those really are little tips like that that sort of help me out. Of course, all the overall things like stay hydrated and stuff like that. Um, keep your and also I tend to try and travel with friends or try and get to the event with friends. I don't travel with friends actually. I usually tend to get there. And if you don't have anyone there at the event, that's fine. What is a good idea is maybe to be in a group chat or a text or something like that. Just because if you had a bad round, you might be in your head about it. You might, start really tilting and go, oh, that was a really bad game. More for store champs this part than it is for LCQ because you have one bad game, you're out, and you just go enjoy Disneyland. But with the store champs, it's like yeah, if you've had a really bad game, you want to go console someone, and you just want to have like a good little moan about, you had a really bad draw or a really bad matchup, or like, oh, I really hate this card, and you just want to get it out there, and they'll just absorb it, and then they might say the same thing to you, or they might need the same treatment in a few rounds time, and those are always really good things like that, just to have a chat. And maybe they have some insight. Maybe they play a deck that you might be paired against, and they can have some talk, tell you about it and say, "Oh, I think you should do this in that matchup." Um, just things like that. It's always good to keep other people around you. It never feels like you're doing the game alone. It feels like you are doing this as a team as well when you're progressing. So definitely try and hang out with people. And if you see me at an event, I'm definitely up for hanging and like having a chat, especially during the rounds. Like if I've got the time, I'm always happy to chat. And if you want to just moan about you playing against someone who just did an absolute bonkers combo, or you just got Diablo locked with a cove, please come and tell me because I will moan about it with you in a very British accent. So yeah, just little tips like that. Like I say, overall with TCGs, it's just play the game. These are just little things like if you feel like you wanted to get a little edge, and just the way that I've been playing them for a while. Just yeah, just definitely keep that in mind. That just play the game, try your best at them, but you know, don't go too in depth on this stuff. There's not much you can do about it. I wrote a tweet the other day. What was it? Decks can brick, pairings can be bad, mulligans can be bad. It's just a TCG at the end of the day. So don't beat yourself up if you lose at any of the events. But everyone who's playing them, good luck. And like I say, lots of I've got lots of cool content coming up um, next week. So I'm just kind of keeping it quiet for then. And yeah, but everyone, good luck at events, and I hope some of the tips help.